Optimum Recoveries has been in operation for 8 years now. In fact, we turned 8 on the 18th of March, which is something that we're quite proud of. For a lot of our clients, debt collection isn't something they're comfortable with or that they like to do a lot of. So we've created a collection manual. We're going to do a whistle-stop tour of the collection manual today, and you'll notice that there's a bit of a running theme through the manual, and that is that it is the debt collection manual. It looks a bit like a car manual or a driver's education manual. I've had some nice round birthdays recently, and I decided that I had to do something that I hadn't done before and something that I'd been petrified of, and that was learning how to drive. And I didn't realise that a lot of what I was learning was feeding its way back into the office, you know. Driving rules, that's a bit like debt collection because, or your car manual, that's a bit like debt collection because. But someone in the room was listening, and that was Stuart, our comms guy, and he turned it into a bit of a manual. So I hope you can have a bit of a laugh with us, and in some of the instances where the photos are, a bit of a laugh at my expense, I think. So, in a perfect world, our invoices will be paid on time, but business isn't a perfect world. We give credit, things go wrong on the job, our invoice might not get to the right person, and we simply don't get paid on time. The Bureau of Statistics has some fairly raw data. 60% of all businesses fail within their first 3 years. Huge, isn't it? Huge. And it's because they don't know how to manage their cash flow. The good people at ASIC support that, support the 60% stat, and they say it's because we either start without the right funding in place, or we take off really quickly and we don't know how to manage the funding, so we're not using it right. So we overspend, frankly. But it's about managing your risk if you want to keep going and get past that 3-year mark. And there are road rules that apply to the area of cash flow collections. So we'll do a whistle-stop tour of that. Before you start your engines, now what this means is before you start dealing with anybody, before you get too excited about the project or start putting in your sweat equity to their business, you need to have some rules in place. And the rules are the fine print. The fine print can be your credit application form or your engagement document or your appointment or contract, whatever you like to call it within your sector. That document should be really clear about who you're dealing with, who's going to pay the bill at the end of the day, any procedures or processes that you need to know about to make sure that you get paid on time. The terms and conditions should outline the scope of the works, the service you're going to provide, the terms that you agreed to about payment, interest clauses for non-payment, jurisdiction, cost recovery clauses, all of those exciting things. So that's a nice external document that you share with people when you're starting to do business with them. It might seem a bit boring, but the fine print counts if you have to collect an invoice at the end of the day. Okay? On the flip side, there's an internal document that you should have in place, or documents. It's a credit policy and procedure. And that credit policy and procedure would have helped me when I was bunny in the spotlights making those phone calls of what sort of credit should be given, who should give credit, how the terms should be applied. If somebody goes over those credit limits, what should happen? And then who makes the decision overall about whether or not the business should take on the risk? Okay, so that's your internal document. So everybody knows what they should do and they have the right training in place to do that. Awesome. Okay, Know Your Passengers is all about understanding who you're effectively giving credit to. Credit is a loan. And if I wandered up to any one of you in the street and said, you know, this fellow's got a nice face, got a nice smile actually, can I borrow $100? No? Okay. That's a walk-up start for any credit relationship. You need to do your checks and measures to make sure that the people that you're dealing with, the people that you're extending a loan to, have the ability to pay you back. You can make some inquiries through Dun & Bradstreet or Vita or Equifax as they're called now, or newer players like Credit or Watch, to make sure that the people that you're dealing with are worthy of your credit, are worthy of your work. Okay? Little checks and measures, they're $8. You know, if you're going in to do a contract for somebody, it's an awesome investment to avoid a debt in the long run. All right. And that knowledge is power. There are credit reports at the moment that give a lot of information about the structure of the company But they do dig a little bit deeper and they look at whether or not the directors of that company or the shareholders of the company, the decision makers within that firm, have been involved with failed entities in the past. That's really powerful knowledge for you because they'll have a propensity to fail again. They even have little indicators that look like when you go to the national park. You know, green for good, red for not so great for fire alerts, that give you an indicator as to whether or not you should deal with them. Now, it's interesting, if you get somebody who wants to work with you, who has a poor credit report, it may be that you don't not deal with them, but you might deal with them differently. It might be that you get a good percentage of deposit up front, or it might be that you get staged payments along the way. But with that knowledge, with that power, you can make those decisions for what's right in your business. Okay? All right. Insurances. So insurances, being in Brisbane at the moment, we all know about insurances and flooding, but in a business sense, your insurance is those terms and conditions that we talked about earlier. The guarantees, the securities, the caveatable interest that you might have in your contract, all of those things that you would be able to invoke if somebody failed to pay your account. They can all come in handy. There's lots of stats and facts around about unsecured creditors and how poorly they fare when a company goes into liquidation or administration or receivership. If there is a dividend paid, and I say if because in a lot of instances where people are unsecured, it's unlikely that they'll get a dividend, but if there is a dividend, it's around about 11 cents in the dollar, which is a bit sad, isn't it? Yeah. So get your securities in place and don't be exposed. All right. When we talk about debt collection, Optimum Recoveries is a debt collection agency. We started that way 8 years ago. It annoyed the heck out of me that people were referring avoidable debt to us. If they'd taken some precautions early on and had the right procedures and processes in place, we just wouldn't be here. So we started to flip the hood and have conversations with people around how did you get here, what are your procedures, what are your processes, and we started to work more in the area of prevention. One of the biggest areas for prevention that anybody can do, and you can take this home today, is to make sure your invoice is right. It's really simple, but things like invoices going to the wrong people, not referencing the correct job, not including a purchase order number when your client's processes require that you have to reference a purchase order, can make all the difference. We have an account at the moment that's just north of $300,000. And the reason it wasn't paid, or we've resolved it now, the reason it wasn't paid was because our client's consultant that set up the agreement didn't take into account what the client's procedures were to get paid on time. The answer was that the invoices needed to be submitted through a portal to the AP team, which is overseas. But our client didn't know that, so they were going through their normal steps of mailing the invoice to the Australian-based entity. And that sat on someone's table or made its way into the round filing cabinet, something like that, but it certainly didn't get paid. So understanding those sorts of things front end will prevent debts further down the line. Okay? All right, warning signs. Who likes making those calls? Ooh, there was a groan in the room. Not many people like making those calls, but it's a necessity. And we actually encourage people to make those calls before it becomes a need for those calls. So before the account's actually due, be proactive, make a customer care call to your client, make sure that they're happy with the goods, that they're happy with the services, that the invoice does have everything it needs to have to be paid on time, and then say, great, so we can have that account paid on Monday as per agreed. Perfect, thank you. It's a customer care call, it's not a debt collection call. You're actually using it to prevent the debt, okay? Within our little guide, and I'll give you the opportunity to get a copy if you'd like, but within our little guide, we outline 10 warning signs for different businesses that you should watch out for as you're going through your process of recovering an account. But some of them are fairly straightforward. Unanswered calls or always being told that somebody's in a meeting and then they fail to return your call. Discounting in desperation, if you see somebody doing a bit of a fire sale or a liquidation sale, as they call it, to try and turn over cash where you know they're selling items for less than what they cost. And even in some instances, expansion. I'm going to flip it on its head a little bit here because some other cash flow warning signs are coming out of the food sector, and you might have seen some news pieces today where organisations like Kellogg's, name brands, Fonterra and others have changed their agreed terms and conditions for their suppliers. So their suppliers are feeling the pinch. Instead of paying at the agreed terms of 30 days, they've pushed them out to 120. But out of the goodness of their heart, in addition to moving their trading terms, they've now set up loan facilities for them so that they can help them with their cash flow. So think about it, if one of your clients is supplying to large stores or to those groups where they've had the rug pulled really without warning, the trading terms have been changed, then that can have a roll-on impact to you. So keep abreast of what's happening in the media as it affects your sector. Okay. All right, so unexpected speed humps. There's always a reason. So as we talked about, it could be because the invoice went to the wrong place. It could be because they're having cash flow issues and they're embarrassed to talk about it, but better to probe and have a conversation than to not. Or it could even be because they're doing other things with your money. They are expanding and they're just going to hold you out there. In any case, that early contact that I mentioned, I think is essential so that you understand where you stand in the state of play. When you're contacting people, it's imperative that you keep records. Amazing the number of accounts that are referred to us where, oh yeah, I rang them, but when did you ring them? Who did you speak with? What did they promise? You know, when were they going to pay? When are they going to pay again? All of those sorts of things should be documented. And you should keep great source documents. So your original contracts, any letters that you might have sent, any variations to the contract or to the project along the way, keep all of those documents in a secure place. And follow up in writing. We've included the stay cool. One of our clients is a gorgeous fence installer. And he got a bit angry with one of his developers that hadn't paid his account, and it got a bit wordy. As to claims about parentage or something like that. But in any case, that's where bringing in a third party can actually help you stay cool. So we can have that non-emotional conversation for you and help a lot of people avoid foot and mouth disease. All right, so this is us ready to take the wheel. The longer you leave it, it's a fact, the longer you leave it, the harder it is to collect. People move on, systems change, documents go missing. All of those sorts of things happen and the account ages out. If you've been working on the account as well and trying to collect it, then that's time, effort and resource that you're allocating to an account that's already aged, and you're not focusing on your good customers who are doing the right thing. You're focusing on the naughty children. Where we sit in, we're licensed commercial agents or licensed collection agents. We're across all of the rules and regulations which are ever changing. And we can have those conversations, unemotional conversations, for you to help. And it reduces in-house costs. All right. Occasionally we need to call in a lawyer as well. If our efforts to collect an account have been thwarted, if we haven't been able to do that, we need to move things forward, or we need to call in some of those securities that we secured earlier. Our lawyer looks nothing like this. This is Craig here. Craig and his team are the people that help us with commencing legal action, so whether that be the issue of a claim, obtaining judgment and proceeding with some form of enforcement, or even commencing wind-up proceedings without a judgment. Fees are also recoverable in most instances for tax, for legal action, and tax deductible. All right, I'm conscious of time, so if we can help with any questions around debt prevention, my favourite, debt management or debt recovery, we're certainly here. And if you'd like a copy of the manual, this, as I say, was a whistle-stop tour. If you'd like a copy of the manual, then please give me or Colin down the back there your business card, and we'll be sure to email you a copy tomorrow. Thank you.